Okay, guys, I'm going to use my computer system this time around, and I'm just going to explain a couple of things to you so you're at least aware. I haven't used this computer in a while, so I figured I might as well use it. I'm going to explain certain things so you guys are at least aware because I had to take extensive amount of classes in this subject, which has to do with ethical hacking. So, long story short, I'm just gonna do like a little side thing like I used to do. Long story short, I had I had taken a class at NYU in cybersecurity, and I had to use certain things that I used to use, which was special type of programming that some of my old friends used to use in college. And what I'm going to explain is that you have to understand from a computer engineer's point of view or electrical engineer. You have a certain amount of energy in you just like you do in a computer system. And there are certain properties, there are certain things that I'm going to bring up because this book is very important to me. It's this book. I'm going to show you the page, but I'm going to show you this. And what I'm going to explain is the following in this specific section right here about security, like being a security officer, just in general. It's like this as an example. And that's the following. When you have your personal, TV, phone, and internet, Verizon, Optimum, Spectrum, whatever you have, they have to follow the FCC guidelines. And there's a thing called eavesdropping, which is in the penal code, which I'm probably going to look up, but I don't need it's either 249 or 250 in the penal code, and it has to do with certain things that I'm going to leave a message for you guys so you're at least aware. You can't, what I'm going to explain is when it comes to computer systems, it's like as an example, God made the commandments, there's coding that they made. And artificial intelligence, just like Alan Turing, the original guy who created it during World War II times, which he studied French and he studied multiple languages. He studied coding, which is the P system, which is Linux and the old systems. I'm using the P system because there was another name for it in college besides the usual system that I was going to pronounce, but I'm not. I'm going to just call it a P system for right now, so kids understand. So when you get on the computer system, you have to press the starting button. A long time ago, there was a thing called AOL. You have to press it. You have to wait a couple minutes. The thing makes a weird noise, and most of the kids that were born in the 90s or even the 80s, they understood that there were certain things that took time. Now it's fast. Now you could just easily use your cell phone and just go on the computer system. But now I'm going to explain something that's in law right now, that up in Albany they have to explain to a lot of these banking people. And that's, you cannot, if you have electronic wire fraud, let's say as an example, during the pandemic, there was a company called ID.me that works for the federal government in California. And what I'm going to say is that they committed a lot of felony charges for unemployment. They were with Key Bank, and Key Bank had a hearing done up there. which I have to explain because KeyBank is not in trouble. They went to the Federal Reserve and they went to most of these other banks and they told them that this ID Me is not who they say they are. They want to put like a digital wallet where you put your stuff on like this, your cell phone, they put your driver's license and everything in. I set up a patent a long time ago. I had to get licensed to do that. And it's very, very technical. In the AmeriCorp, I had to do that. And the AmeriCorp knows something that which has to do with the military, which has to do with this, which also has to do with mitzvah, which also has to do with Sator law, which is good and bad. And that's, you have to have equal exchange. So if, let's just say as an example, you have someone commit an act, a crime. He stole from you. He took, I don't know, $1 million worth of gold. Well, just like the universal system says, you have to give, you have to, for $1 million, it has to equal $1 million in the gold. But the problem is nowadays is you have a thing called the economy, and that's based on certain things. But what I'm bringing out is about this cybersecurity program, is it has to do with accounting. You guys, I'm going to explain something to you from the original standard, which is the United Kingdom. You cannot combine you can't combine like taking computer courses and taking accounting courses, because it's an ethics violation. Because when I was in the Treasury Department for certain people, for the non-for-profits, you weren't allowed to do that. Computer people couldn't go into accounting, and accounting couldn't go into computer departments. It's has to do with something under the UCC law, which has to do with contract law, which has to do with breach of contract, and also has to do with management, and it also has to do with like an oversight committee that the AI CPA has to do with. That is, they have to be separate. It can't be together. And I had a professor of mine, his name was Nick Dauber, and I'm happy he taught me this. I had to retake these classes. I'm not upset at him. I'm upset at the college because they were doing things against black people and Jewish people, and they were doing things against people of our race, which I'm not talking about white people because we're all mixed. I'm talking about people in general that wanted to advance themselves. See, here I'm going to explain something about FAFSA and TAP for most of you guys that don't understand this. You have to take the FAFSA. There was that guy that was with Candace Owens on that speech. You have to take it. Yeah, that's great and all, but there's regulations. The regulations is if you're a low-income person, which I was at that time because I wasn't technically here. I was away. They base it on 2 incomes. They base it on your parents' income, which has to do with your mom and dad's income, and they have to do with something called TAP. And TAP and FAFSA are the federal and state, and they're 2 different things. And another thing is, a lot of those systems, just like ID.me, they got hacked. And another thing is, I'm going to explain something that LifeLock even told me. And a big supervisor had a big fist fight in court. And that is, you cannot steal information. You can't they had me listed as an employee of Queens College, of CUNY. And you're not allowed to do that because that has to do with tax fraud. That's tax fraud. The IRS and Department of Treasury explained that they explained that to me. I had to go into court in Hauppauge, which is in Long Island here, and they explained to me you can't, this $80,000 limit or the $60,000 limit is a ridiculous amount. Most people cannot make that amount, or their two parents' income is too much of that amount because Long Island has a thing called taxes. Besides school taxes, they have to do with property taxes, and those things have skyrocketed. And there's a person by the name of Peter King, by the way, who I had a conversation with, every once in a while. My parents had them. But when I was younger, I used to tell a lot of my relatives who were in the Republican Party, if you really want to be a Republican, these taxes have to get dropped, especially during crisis events, because Alexander Hamilton and a lot of the forefathers stated this. You can't have double taxation without representation, and it's illegal, and it's fraudulent. And the problem is with a lot of this fraudulent activity, just like cloth, you can't expect citizens to pay two taxes. You have Social Security, which is a security debt, which is in the Vatican, which they have to do with something ridiculous. I'm going to take my something out of my pants, my shorts, for a reason. They're promissory notes. This is $1. In the business, this is known as blood money. So you see this guy right here? I'm going to explain certain things when it comes to money. You have to have, in a business, just like as a citizen for security debts, you have to have things that back it. Just like Bitcoin was required to get backed. But the problem is that people don't understand. If you want to go cashless, congratulations. The reason why I'm bringing that up is the Federal Reserve can't do it because the FDIC has to back a lot of that stuff, and they can't do that. There's a limit. And then there's a rule that Alexander Hamilton, just like the original founding fathers in capitalism, said, is that you have to go by what the citizens say. Not the citizens, meaning the taxpayers, not the politicians. Congress and Senate cannot make rules. When they become too outrageous, it becomes treason, which we're in right now. We're in this treason phase because you have a president that's incompetent. I don't care what anyone says. You want me to fight in court, I'll fight in court. I'll go under constitutional law, and then I'll take you over to tax court, and I'll embarrass you because it has to do with money. You cannot take money that does not belong to you. If you take 50 cents out of this dollar, you better be using the 50 cents out of this dollar, because most of the people like me that were, even when we were German, we were Italian, whatever nationality, race, ethnicity, or whatever, the old German way, now I'm not talking about the way that it is now. I'm talking about the old school way, which is the Greek way, which is Italian and French. Which Germany originally was Italian and French and the other countries as well. But I'm going to get to this point for Greece, ancient Greece times. If you ever stole, and this has to do with Abraham, and this has to do with the Muslims and the Jewish people and also the Asians, because this is very important. If you ever stole money back in the day, and I'm not talking about now, I'm talking about back in the day, they would take you out and they would execute you. And they wouldn't think a thing about it. So you guys in Congress and Senate, you're at that point where you're going to have not a January 6th, you're going to have a riot situation. And I had to face you, Mr. Fauci, in a hearing in New York. And you're in big freaking trouble. You bioengineered 2 viruses. Every EMT, every nurse, every patient, every doctor, they told you this. It is over. And the woman who happens to be working with you, by the way, you did tax auditing. There was a tax audit. I did it. You didn't pass, you failed. And not only did you fail, you took taxpayer dollars in the millions and used it in a book. The second thing is, with that amount of money, you tried to blackmail me. The president's son, by the way, has art gallery pieces that's a part of Interpol. It's an Interpol investigation. And Interpol, another thing too with you, Interpol, you're required to come over here. Because there was a meeting done in New York. Because this person was saying it's $5 million, and the insurance company says it's not $5 million, it's $3 million. So where is the $2 million going? It's going to somebody. So I'm going to explain something to you, the real old ways of doing things. So let's just say, as an example, you have Moses. He made the 10 Commandments, which are laws. If you stole in those times, let's just say I was in Saudi Arabia, because I have a friend named Omar and Farouk that was in Queens. We had to take the stupid computer class. We were all laughing because these two professors, they were nice and all, but sometimes I didn't know where the heck they were. They were in and out all the time. So I'm going to, see, flags down. When you were in Saudi Arabia and you stole money, they would take you into the little area, the old ways, and they would beat the living daylights out of you stole. They didn't care if you were a woman. They didn't care if you were a man. And it was dangerous. And it was very, very dangerous. And that's why a lot of people had to come to the United States. Because in those times, in the ancient times, it was dangerous. And women were not treated correctly. They were treated worse than second-class citizens. And the big thing I'm going to bring out with this, which has to do with my little bag that I have for change, is you cannot get rid of this system because it's not backed up. Because every financial advisor and every financial accountant would have told you the same thing. You have to have something in paper. Alexander Hamilton and even George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, they wrote in the original Constitution, it has to be done in paper. And if they don't do it in paper, it's considered unconstitutional. And what you did, Mr. Fauci, Dr. Fauci, you did something illegal. You lied under oath, which you committed perjury. And you can't do that. And the Supreme Court, which has to do with Trump's case, I had to testify in that hearing. I was required to do that. I was duty bound. They had me stay in my house for that purpose. But they didn't show up for some reason. Something happened. And I had a feeling something was going to happen. But you are required to not get involved anymore. And you're not supposed to be in a position when you steal stuff for people. And it's dangerous. So thank you guys. Have a good day.